What's up, guys? UFC 239 coming up this Saturday. An amazing card, one of the best cards of the entire year, from marquee names to high-level matchups to competitive, exciting, stylistic collisions. Just to keep it a little bit more modest, we're going to start with Alejandro Perez versus Song Yadong. Alejandro Perez seemed to be a promising prospect before he fought Cody Stamann, and the train got a little bit derailed for a little bit, but he's up against another promising prospect in Song Yadong, who has been blowing through everybody he's been up against in the UFC already. A real legit prodigy from China, 21 years old, and a striking phenom. Some of the most shocking knockout power you'll ever see in this division. Just like many fighters you start to see today, he has that same kind of footwork pattern where he's always balanced in every position. He's not really moving step by step. He's always hopping. He can move laterally, linearly. He is always ready to deliver that powerful right hand of his, and his left hook is devastating as well. He has insanely powerful kicks as well. The firepower he brings in this fight is going to be pretty overwhelming, I think, for Alejandro Perez, who Perez isn't really outstanding anywhere. He's not extraordinary in any aspect of MMA. He is definitely more of a striker than a grappler. With good, solid takedown defense, Song Yadong can surprise Perez by going for a takedown just to mix up the game. But on the feet, Perez has decent hands. He has a decent ability to counter. He waits a little bit too much. Sometimes he can be a little bit too patient. That can hurt him or it can help him in this fight. It depends what Song Yadong does, right? If Yadong goes out there and is a little bit too aggressive, a little bit more than his liking, then Perez can potentially find some counters here and there. But Perez isn't that kind of powerful striker. He has one knockout in the UFC, but it was a lot to do with his opponent getting really tired. Song Yadong has gone 3 rounds already in the UFC, which is good experience for him, and that cardio edge is not really going to go to Perez. It's only a 3-round fight. I think they're both going to be pretty well drawn for 3 rounds. But at the end of the day, my prediction for this fight, I have to go with Song Yadong. I think he's just way too overwhelming. He's way too powerful, way faster. His ability to go from leg kicks, to body punches, to that right straight down the center is just all too dynamic for a guy like Alejandro Perez, I believe. So I'm going to go with Song Yadong. I'm going to go by a 3rd round TKO. I think Perez is pretty tough. And then we're going to go on the main card, Jan Blachowicz. He's been in the UFC for like 5 years at least, and I still don't know how to pronounce his name. Versus Luke Rockhold. This is a very interesting fight. One of the more competitive fights on the entire card. It's especially interesting because Luke Rockhold's coming up from middleweight to light heavyweight, and automatically people think that Rockhold's going to be this extremely interesting prospect for the light heavyweight division. The speed coming up from middleweight is going to be a different aspect to his game because at middleweight he was never known as a fast fighter. Usually he was outsped by his opponents. Now, he potentially could be the faster fighter, and we have to see how that plays into his game, how it changes up his fighting style. Because at middleweight, of course, he wasn't that fast, but he was huge, right? At light heavyweight, he's going to be average at most. Jan Blachowicz, people don't notice how big he is, but he's only an inch shorter with about an inch reach advantage. So Rockhold's size advantage he always used to have is not going to be a factor 20 pounds up from his previous weight class. Now the stylistic collision is very interesting because both these guys are excellent BJJ practitioners. I would say Rockhold is the better BJJ practitioner. He has showcased it. He's grappled with Hare back in Strikeforce, and you only have to think Rockhold's gotten a lot better. Whenever he gets on top of somebody, it's pretty much a wrap. Is it going to be the same thing in this fight with Blachowicz? I don't know, because can he take down Jan? Or is it ever going to go to the ground? I think the only way this fight goes to the ground is if one of them drops the other, or Rockhold has really worked on his takedowns, because he hasn't been fighting too often. So we don't know how much he's progressing, how his training has been going with DC and all those wrestlers at AKA, but you have to think it has to be a focus coming to this one, because on the feet, yes, Rockhold could be dynamic, he could be pretty athletic, he has very long, powerful kicks, he has a decent check right hook, southpaw, but for a guy like Jan, who usually stays patient, besides his fight with Thiago Santos, for some reason he wanted to just rush him, which is very uncharacteristic, usually Jan is very patient, right? He doesn't force things. He has decent power. You saw him drop Ilir Latifi with a body kick. He has respectable power, like when he fought Jimmy Manuwa, although Manuwa doesn't have the greatest chin. Neither does Rockhold. We have to see how his chin holds up at light heavyweight. But with Jan's patient approach, it's going to keep Luke Rockhold on edge, right? Rockhold's very used to keeping fights long range. But in this fight, Jan Blachowicz is going to be able to hit Rockhold from the outside as well. And Rockhold always keeps his chin really high up. So it's going to be very interesting to see if he can actually defend those shots, or he's going to use the wrestling as a counter. Instead of just blocking up high and moving away, he potentially could find double legs under or single legs under to drag it to the ground. That would make this fight a lot more favorable for him, but if it stays on the feet, I actually favor Jan Blachowicz. Right, Jan has better boxing, I believe. He's a lot more defensively responsible, a lot more fundamentally responsible. Luke Rockhold doesn't really throw too much. He throws an offensive left straight, defensive right hook, and left round kicks with an occasional right question mark kick. Sometimes he'll throw a push kick. Jan has a lot more variety in his striking. So my prediction for this fight, I'm actually going to go with Jan Blachowicz. I think he's very capable on the ground to survive or scramble with Rockhold a bit. And on the feet, I think Rockhold's defense is not going to be there. And the biggest thing coming into this fight, it seems like Rockhold is extremely confident. A little bit too confident. He's already talking about fighting Jon Jones. It's almost like he's completely dismissing Jan here. And Rockhold needs a win. Like, this is not, oh, I've been doing so well, I could just blow through this guy. It doesn't even matter. It's a foregone conclusion. No, Rockhold's in a bit sticky situation here, moving up from middleweight, coming off a loss. And he's fighting a guy who can also blast his chin into next week. So I think Jan has that mental advantage in this fight. I think he has the boxing advantage. I think even kicking, he can go kick for kick with Rockhold for a bit. I think he might be actually a bit faster, maybe just slightly, because he doesn't overextend on his punches and he keeps everything very technical. So I'm going to go with Jan Blachowicz. I'm actually going to go by a third round TKO. I think he's going to eventually cash the chin of Rockhold. And then we go to one of the biggest fights, not just of this card, but of this year. Jorge Masvidal versus Ben Askren. Probably the most intriguing stylistic collision on this entire card. What we know about this fight is, if it stays on the feet, Masvidal's gonna win. Easily. If it goes to the ground, you would have to think Askren could dominate Masvidal, but I would actually say the difference of skill on the feet is a lot more vast than it is on the ground. Masvidal can potentially knock out Askren at any given moment. He could set him up at any given moment. And he's a lot faster. He's a lot more powerful. He's a lot slicker. He's a lot more smooth and athletic with his movements. But Askren's a zombie, man. He moves in, just reaching forward, trying to grab onto you. Sometimes he'll have decent head movement to get his way in. Like against Robbie Lawler, he slipped on the left hand, slipped on the outside, and drove in to eventually get a hold of him. He could potentially do the same thing to Masvidal, but Masvidal doesn't really extend too much besides if he's 100% confident he's going to land that strike. Usually Masvidal is very patient with his striking, very methodical. He knows what he's doing. He's extremely smart in there, but that tends to leave him very defensive, a little bit too defensive to where he loses fights because of it, right? It's not like he's getting hit or taken down or controlled or anything. He just lets his opponent do more than him. But in this fight, Askren's going to bring the fight to him. He's going to bring that wrestling to him. And that's the thing about Askren. He has amazing wrestling. He's a bit small for this division, I would say. You saw that especially when he fought Robbie Lawler, who is about an average welterweight, maybe a little bit above average in size. But in this fight, they are relatively the same weight, the same size, which can actually benefit Ben Askren. Askren does have good eyes. He can see things coming pretty well. And that's usually how he gets takedowns on opponents. He usually likes to shoot constantly. It's not just one shot. It's very similar to Damian Maia. He will keep shooting on you until he gets you down. And that is the problem coming into this fight for Masvidal. When you saw his fight with Damian Maia, he got taken down pretty easily a couple times. Ben Askren's a much better takedown artist than Damian Maia is. It's not even close. And if Masvidal is going to get taken down by Damian Maia, I have to believe he's going to get taken down by Askren. It's a little bit different with the approach because Damian Maia is a lot more imposing with his wide stance, large stature, and constant jabs in your face. Ben Askren kind of zombies his way in, which can leave him a little bit more vulnerable. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Ben Askren. It's a bit of a safer bet, but I absolutely do not agree with the betting odds. Being an over 2-1 favorite for Ben Askren, that is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, that's just unacceptable. This fight is extremely close. Masvidal can easily win this fight with the right kind of approach. And Masvidal has even said that the Damian Maia fight has shown him and taught him a lot. It's hard to quantify that. It's hard to put that into this because we don't know how much he learned or is he just talking. We'll see out there when the fight happens. But I'm going to go with Ben Askren. I'm going to go by a decision. I don't think Masvidal is going to be in too much danger in this fight. And then we go to the co-main event. The double champ, greatest of all time, Amanda Nunes versus Holm. The only real opponent, or let's say marquee name, that she has not beaten yet. Right? She has beaten Jermaine Durandamy, she has beaten Cyborg, she has beaten Miesha Tate, Ronda Rousey, Valentina Shevchenko twice. Holm's like the only one left. And it's a very tough fight for Holm. I'm just going to say it straight up. This fight is not going to be easy. Even though Holm has the boxing experience, in MMA, Amanda Nunes might even have the advantage of boxing. let alone the ability to clinch up with her and take it to the ground. Because what does Holly Holm like to do a lot? If you get close to her, pressure her a little bit too much, she actually initiates the clinch. If she initiates the clinch on Amanda Nunes, you bet Nunes is going to take her to the ground. She took down Shevchenko. Shevchenko even took down Holly Holm, but Nunes has taken down Shevchenko. She has taken down many fighters in her career with much higher level grappling than Holly Holm, and that's not even counting the knockout power and the distance management that she has. She is way better at managing distance than Holly Holm is. They're the same height, they're the same reach, but Nunes has a mastery of controlling that range, whereas Holly Holm makes everything obvious. Right? She yells before she strikes every single time. So just reacting, you know when punches are coming. And you know when combinations are coming. Holly Holm isn't the quickest with her legs. Her punches are decent power. They're not anything crazy. They're really just to set up things as well as just tallying the punch count. But it's the kicks that really have the devastating power, but they come up pretty slow, especially for someone like Nunes who has a mastery of that range. It's going to be very hard to connect with some of those head kicks. But that's the thing with Holly Holm. She also always commits with the same setups and combinations. They're all straight punches for the most part. She'll either come in with the left straight, then right, then left, and then exit away. Or jab, left straight, right, and then exit away. And she always moves in one direction when she's scaling the cage, because she's obviously going to get pressure in this fight. She moves one direction the entire time, and she's skipping. She is out of her stance for most part of the fight. And that is a very dangerous thing to fight Amanda Nunes like. So my prediction for this fight, I think Amanda Nunes might dominate. I can see her knocking out Holly Holm later in the fight, maybe third roundish. But I actually see a submission win for Nunes. I think she's eventually going to get a rear naked choke on Holly Holm, eventually take it to the ground, maybe tag Holly Holm a couple times because Holm does have a decent chin. She took punches from Cyborg. And the clinch is going to eventually initiate. Nunes takes a hurt Holly Holm to the ground and eventually taps her out. Then we go to the main event, Jon Jones versus Thiago Santos. And already people are really overlooking Thiago Santos. I understand Jon Jones is supposed to be the favorite. He's supposed to be a big favorite. But there's something different about this fight. Okay, Jon Jones has all the skills and all the technique on his side. From kicks to punches to elbows to knees to takedowns to submissions to control to distance to footwork. He has it all. What does Thiago Santos have? Power, speed, and unpredictability. Pretty much it. I mean, that's a lot of attributes. There's not really too much skill behind any of that. It's a lot of just natural born talent, natural born abilities. But I would actually say Thiago Santos is the most dangerous striker Jon Jones has ever faced in his entire career. Most powerful, one of the fastest. I would say Lyoto and Vitor might be faster. One of the fastest, but combined with that God-given power, he can put anybody out at any given moment. Look what he did to Jan Blachowicz, who has a really good chin. Thiago Santos needed one right hook, put that guy down. You could call that puncher's chance. Thiago Santos could potentially find an opening that many others aren't, past the boxing defense of Jon Jones, which I would say is his biggest flaw. He is one of the only fighters that's going to mix up kicks with his punches, with all of that speed and power. And Thiago Santos coming out there with nothing to lose and everything to win, which also makes him a very dangerous, no matter who it is. If they have that kind of mentality, they're automatically going to be an extremely dangerous fighter. But my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Jon Jones. Santos, even though he has all of these natural abilities, he is a little too wild, man. He doesn't do anything really precisely. And the way he knocks these guys out, it's just looping punches, spinning kicks out of nowhere, no real setups or anything. He kind of just blasts his way in and eventually finds your chin or finds your liver. I just don't see Thiago Santos making his way in. He could potentially find leg kicks, which is something no one throws at Jon Jones. So that's going to be interesting. With a nothing to lose mentality, he might throw a bunch of leg kicks, a bunch of body kicks that people don't throw at Jones and might be effective. What if that has been the answer this whole time? You know, and Thiago Santos eventually does it because he has his kind of style that he'll just go to anything. Yeah, but I'm going to go with Jon Jones. Way too technical, way too long, way too precise, way higher of a fight IQ. And I think Jones is going to win by a 4th round submission. I think Thiago Santos is eventually going to punch himself out, as well as Jon Jones draining him because of takedowns, leaning on him. He is the bigger guy. So yeah, Jon Jones, 4th round submission. And let's look at the rest of the card here. So the card's insane, right? You have Diego Sanchez versus Michael Chiesa. I think it's a mismatch. I think Chiesa dominates him. Gilbert Melendez versus Arnold Allen, another case of that. The old veteran versus the young prospect. We just saw Matt Wyman versus Luis Pena. It's a very similar thing. I think Arnold Allen is just way too high of a level. So let's look at the betting odds here. And I know there's a lot of big favorites. So like Ishmael versus Chance Rencontre. I don't know how to pronounce these names. 5-1 favorites, a bit much for guys who barely have the experience to back that up. And we see it again with Edmund Shabazian, who is an insane prospect. I mean, I'm really high on this guy, but he's fighting Jack Marshman, who is more of a veteran. Being a 6.5-1 favorite is a bit much. Wow, Rockhold's actually that much of a favorite. Almost a 2.5-1 favor over Jan. That's a bit much. Even if you're a Rockhold fan, Ben Askren being a 2-1 favorite is ridiculous. So Masvidal, Jan Blachowicz, and Chance Recountree are probably your underdogs for this card. So I hope you guys enjoyed the predictions, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe. Next video is going to be the podcast. I was going to actually come out with that last night, but then I started working on this prediction video because it was coming so soon. I completely forgot it was Wednesday yesterday. I thought it was like Monday, Tuesday. I completely lost track of time. So be looking out for that. And again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.